Welcome to Energising Life with AKR Fitness. I'm your host, Lynsey, and today we have Mike.
Hello.
And Coach Zatto.
Hello.
Welcome. This is your second podcast now.
Yes.
Nerves
More
have settled.
Relaxed, yeah, a little bit more relaxed. Yeah.
So today, this is our final episode of the season, episode 40. And just to go back a few, the topic really was to sift through misinformation and fads and understand that our brain can fool us. And on this last episode today, we're going to talk about principles versus methods. But before we get into all of that, it is now your time to shine, Zatto. If you could tell us a little bit about who you are and your journey into the coaching industry.
Okay. So I've only been in the coaching industry for 3 years, but I've always had a relationship with exercise. I originally had done a sports study degree at university, and I decided not to go down that route at that time because I didn't like the way the industry was. I didn't want to work in a gym. I didn't see, I just didn't take my fancy. Mm-hmm. So that then took me to then doing various different jobs as I decided what I wanted to do at uni. At the time I was working as a lifeguard full time.
Yep.
And I decided that it's just always been in me that I want to help people. I think that's just the way I am. So the occupational therapy degree at RGU took my fancy, and that's the path I went down.
So sorry, just to pause you there, you were lifeguarding at the same time as doing full-time lifeguard after, was it uni that you did the science, sports science?
Yeah.
Didn't really know what you wanted to do with it.
Yeah.
So then you went into full-time lifeguard.
Yeah.
And it was at that point you sort of, I want to help people, how can I do this without going down the gym route?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So I did my degree. It was great. Had a lot of fun. Met Neil, my husband, when I was lifeguarding as well. He was.
How many years ago was that?
Goodness. 14 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's been a long time. So did my degree, and it was great, and I was really lucky, and I got a job pretty much straight away, 2 weeks later, and started working for the NHS as an occupational therapist. I worked in orthopedics, and then I managed to get a job in the community. So I was just working with different conditions, like people with MS, Parkinson's, older age people.
So did you feel like you were now able to help the way that you wanted to?
Yeah, it definitely started off like that. It started off where I definitely had job satisfaction probably the first couple of years I worked in, because it was very, very hands-on. Every day was different. It was great. It was active. I'm just the sort of person that wants to be on their feet. I don't really suit sitting at a desk type thing. So the first kind of few years were great, and I was loving my job, and then cuts happened and things changed, and it just made me realise that I didn't really want to be in that job anymore. So that is when I decided to do my personal trainer qualification.
So almost went full circle.
Yeah.
What made you decide to go back to that? Because you thought that it wasn't for you at the time, the industry, the gyms, the classes. What made you think, you know what, I'm done with occupational therapy, let's go try personal training?
There was a turning point in my job where so at the time I was working in a unit for 60 plus people. So the unit that I worked in was a step down from hospital before you go home. So you would come with us, OT, physio, nurses worked there, no doctors. They would come in if you needed them. And this certain person came in, and he was in his late 50s, but he wasn't 60, so he shouldn't have come into the unit. But because there was nowhere else for him to go, we just decided as a team that he was going to come to us. So what happened was he broke his hip, and this man was very overweight. So he basically, cut a long story short, he wanted help. He was like, help me, I don't know how to eat properly, I'm putting on more weight, I don't know how to exercise, I don't want to go to the gym, I don't have access to any of that. And I just felt like every person I tried to refer him to, it was a problem. Like, refer him to the dietitian, oh, that's going to take 6 months to a year. Like, what can we do with him like now?
He's asking for help and there's no help for him.
There was just nothing. He was put on shakes by the doctor, which were these like little things, and he was like drinking those. And at this point, he was losing weight, but I knew in myself that wasn't the answer. It wasn't helping him. We were going to put him back into that situation, and things were just going to escalate again. So he ended up discharged and had lost weight, and had gone home, and he'd fallen again and broken his other hip and was admitted back to us. And there was a scenario where we came into work and he went into cardiac arrest, and we had to do CPR, and he passed away. And that was the point where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
So it felt like the system that you were working with failed him almost.
Yeah.
And you felt a part of that, and you couldn't help him, but you tried.
Yeah.
And that was the turning point of, we can't make a real difference here.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. And
And then what happened after that?
So I actually ended up off work for a little bit because it was just too, like, I even feel myself welling up right now because it's
traumatic.
It was traumatic and it shouldn't have happened. So like I obviously stayed. I'm not the sort of person to like leave a job and try and seek something else. So I stayed there, ended up on desk duty, which kind of put me in quite a low mood. And I think I'd already done my exercise to music. So I was teaching classes like, you know, the old school aerobics and all that stuff. And teaching like MetaFit, all those classes. And that kept me going. But you know, I almost felt like a trained monkey, like, you know, here's the pre-choreographed stuff, go and like take class. So it kept me going up to a point, and that's when I decided, no, I'm going to do this. So at the time, I didn't actually have enough annual leave to take my personal trainer qualification. So I applied for unpaid leave. And I remember my boss at the time saying, oh, you're not going to leave us, are you? And I was like, oh, no. Like, I'm just going to do this. And I don't even think I'll be a personal trainer. I think it'll just be something that I'll maybe do on the side. I'll maybe train a couple of friends.
How long ago was this, Zatto?
So this must have been 2017.
Okay.
2016, 17. Yeah. So I did my qualification 2018, and started it, and and then I found AKR.
And that's some story. It really sounds like you wanted to make a bigger difference in the world, and you weren't able to do it in the role that you were in.
Yeah.
To be that person that guy could have came to for help.
Yeah.
On you go. What were you going to say?
No, it's just, no, carry on.
Yeah. So you found AKR. What did that look like? What happened? What was the situation?
That was on Facebook, and I hadn't passed at this point, but I'd like done all the, you know, the anatomy exams and all this, and we just had a little bit of practical to finish off. So I hadn't quite passed it at this point. And I saw the AKR meetup on Facebook. So
for personal trainers, isn't it? We ran a
for
meetup.
personal trainers, yeah. And I remember sitting there and I was like, oh, maybe I could go to that. And then my husband Neil was like, yeah, you should go to it. And I was like, no, I haven't passed though. I was like, that would just be weird because they'll be like, why are you here? You haven't passed.
I think I did write in the copy. It was for new and aspiring trainers.
Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah.
But anyway, there was a little bit of back and forth in my own mind, and my husband Neil, he was like, just go for it. I turned up very nervous, like, what is this place? What's going on?
I can remember it being it was busy.
Was busy.
Yeah.
With over
really
25
busy, yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Trainers.
we did
Yeah.
speed dating, remember?
Yeah.
Like, just so everyone could get to know each other in 2 minutes.
I think at one point, as I came at the door, I realised it was busy. And I think if I hadn't seen Roy's face, Roy Ritchie, I think I probably would have ran away. But he was familiar to me. Because we went to school together. So I was like, all right, okay, this is fine.
There's someone I know.
Yeah, a familiar face.
Yeah. So and I came and I was like, wow, there's like lots of personal trainers here. And I don't think you guys expected there to be so many.
No, I think it was probably like a Thursday afternoon. Just threw it up on Facebook to see. We just wanted to host a meetup for coaches and to see who was out there that might be potential staff members for us. So.
Yeah.
Hence the speed dating.
Yeah, the speed dating, I guess, for the listener, I think it was your idea, Lynsey.
Yeah.
It was like, how do we have a chance? Because if you do something just in a big group, people tend not to contribute. So how do we do something where everybody can quickly meet everybody else in 2 minutes and we get to meet everybody?
Yeah.
That's where that came about.
I remember it well. Like, do you remember it?
Yeah, I do remember
So it was just right along the turf. 2 minutes change. You had that conversation back and forth. And I don't know what it'd be. I'm intrigued to hear what your side of the story was, but I remember myself, Mike and Jace, we all were in agreement of the same person.
Yeah, well, I again, aware of my own biases and things, I said to you guys afterwards, I was like, was there anyone there that you thought might be an option for us? And everyone's like, that girl Caroline was good.
Yeah.
Which for the listeners,
Zatto.
is Zatto's other name.
She has a few names.
My names.
Yeah.
So yeah, your experience.
Yeah, but I thought it was a great way to set it up because you just got to speak to like everyone, and it was good like for me just to hear a little snippet of what everyone else's journey is, and then it just made me more comfortable with what the gym was here as well, because I'd never heard of a setup like this before, so I just was like, I just imagined like even if you worked here it would just be like one-on-one personal training. I didn't know about group personal training or anything like that, but yeah, it was a good experience. It was a really good experience.
Did it calm your nerves listening to other people's conversations, because you're then, they actually don't know maybe as much as I do, or we're on the same playing field, the same level.
Yeah, it definitely did. I did come away thinking, whoa, that was a whirlwind.
Definitely.
But yeah, no, it was good. And that's when, I think it must have been maybe a couple of weeks later, I remember going home and then Neil was like, how was that? And I was like, I'm so good at speed dating.
He's like, what? Where did you go?
What's going on? What are you up to? So I obviously told him about it, and he was like, well, so what happens now then? And I was like, well, it was just nice to see what the gym was like, and I don't think anything will come out of it. It was just nice for me to see what other personal trainers were doing and what they were getting up to. And then Mike reached out and he was like, we think we could help you with your journey. Do you want to come in? And then so it came in, and then you offered the 30-day trial, which I really enjoyed because that opened my eyes up to even more. And I got even fitter and stronger at the same time, which was great. But I remember Neil saying, so what's going on? Are you getting, is this a job, or what's happening? And I was like, well, I'm getting to work out. This is
leave me alone.
And I was like, I'm learning as well. So yeah, fantastic. So I didn't have any expectations to start working here. I just thought you guys were fantastic because you were helping me out, showing me the ropes and things like that. And then yeah, did a bit of shadowing, which was the most intimidating thing ever.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I think I've always been into exercise, but I hadn't really I don't even think I was deadlifting or even squatting correctly. So to have to then try and coach someone else when you weren't confident with it yourself, and I probably was at one point confident with it because I did go to the gym by myself, but I would watch someone else and I'd mess about and I'd be like, yeah, this is fine, I'm doing it right. So because I wasn't comfortable with weights, then for me to then coach someone, it was a bit wow. But as Mike said, nobody's just instantly good at something. It takes time, it takes practice. So now I'm a coach and it's great.
But not only a coach, Zatto, and a wife, you're also
a mother of two. Forgot that part.
And just sort of quickly, how do you find the balance between being a mum, working shifts, being a wife? Like, how's that all played out for you with a changing career?
Initially, it wasn't too bad because my son Brody was already at school. He was at school, nursery, and we had good support from like parents for childcare. So initially it was fine, and I was used to that kind of shift pattern anyway. Like one of the main reasons I went for occupational therapy is because I thought I had to be in that bracket of working Monday to Friday, 9 till 5. But I didn't really like that setup. Like, I'd always done shifts working lifeguarding throughout, supporting myself through uni and things. So the getting up at 6 and, like, I almost found it like a bonus, because when I did my qualification, I was like, I don't think I can work in this industry because I can't work till 10, 11 o'clock at night. Like, it's just not feasible. So when I realized like the hours here, I was like, oh, like this could really like still work for me. I could still like do it. I could still achieve what I want to achieve. So initially like great, and it worked. I'm not saying it was perfect. Like, obviously there's hurdles. Kids get sick. Kids get clingy. So they don't like
Neil
change.
Gets clingy.
Neil didn't like the change. So there was a lot of moving around, but we got used to it. I was in my flow and I was learning and I was getting better at my coaching. And then lovely Maya threw a spanner in the works.
Like, it was never planned.
Yeah. And I think I was a bit naive in the process, actually. I thought, it's fine. She's going to just slot into our lives and it's just going to be normal. And then she is a completely different child, and in a good way. But there's a lot of more juggling around, and like we'll get there, but it's very overwhelming, and I do feel like I'm drowning at times. Yeah.
Trying to take care of the family, a new baby, get back into work. Yeah. You feel like maybe I remember you saying that you felt like you weren't as good as a coach because you haven't been doing the coaching hours, and it all is just piling up at the moment. Yeah. So very, very overwhelming, but it doesn't last forever. So you've just got to push on and keep going with it. Yeah. Good.
Yeah. I wouldn't change it. Like, even though it feels a lot at times. Like, I wouldn't
you don't want to go back to the desk as a sitting as an occupational therapist.
No.
Seeing life pass by.
No,
good. Have you got anything else to add, Zatto?
No.
Okay. Mike?
No, I think so. Remember the journey well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
So moving on with the episode, we are here today to talk about principles versus methods. Mike, do you want to give us a sort of introduction to that?
Yeah. So if you've been following along, hopefully you have. The last few episodes outside of the interviews, I sort of introduced the argument that we can't trust our brains all the time because they're not rational robots, they're not computers, they're prone to errors which are predictable. Then we did one that hopefully went okay. That was talking about, okay, well, if we can't trust our brain, what can we trust? And I introduced the idea that, like, the concept of the scientific method and controlling for variables and trying to find out what's true. At the same time, we said, well, it's difficult though, because how, as a layperson, do we know what we can trust with the science, particularly because it's often not the studies that gets reported, it's the headlines. And we don't expect people to go and read scientific studies to decide what they're going to eat for their breakfast. Today, I hope that we can then bring that one step further and chat about this idea of principles versus methods. Little line that I like: methods are many, principles are few. Methods may change, but principles rarely do. So the idea is, people often try, let's take weight loss. There's all sorts of weird and wonderful different methods that you can try in order to lose weight. But there's one principle that they all must follow for them to be successful, and that is energy balance, i.e. a calorie deficit, i.e. consuming fewer calories than you expend. So that's the principle. Whatever your method is, if it's going to result in weight loss, it must honour the principle. So by focusing more on principles than methods, or putting principles before methods, hopefully it can give a little bit of direction for someone when they're deciding on their approach to health and fitness or other things in life.
As we spoke about in the episode before Stevie's about fads and diets, and they're all methods, right? They're methods to losing weight.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if you can find the principle of that and stick to it, it's always going to win.
Well, you can create your own method that works for you. You know, you could make your own diet that works for you in your life, so long as it honours the principle of energy balance, which, again, it's a law of thermodynamics that's observed in the universe. It's unlikely to change. I'm not going to say that principles can never change, but it's pretty rare. Yeah. So, to give an example, we have gravity on this planet, or in this universe as well. There might be all different types of methods of air travel that develop and continue to develop over the years, like different types of technology will come up. I think I mentioned on the previous one, they're testing electric planes and things. But no matter what your method of air travel, how that will change in the next 10, 20, 100 years, that plane better respect the principles of gravity and the principles of aerodynamics. So there's no getting away from that principle.
It's not going to fly without it.
Yeah. Finances. This, I think, is a good parallel for nutrition and fitness. In finances, you might have get-rich-quick schemes.
There's a few out there.
That's akin to the get-slim-quick schemes.
Yeah.
But in order for you to have money in your account, your income must be more than your expenditure. So it's very similar to the calorie thing. So you can try all crazy schemes, but if it doesn't honour the basic principle of what we're doing here, then it's not going to work. Similarly, in exercise, there's a principle called progressive overload. In order for you to improve at a particular aspect of the fitness, it has to challenge you in a way more than what it did before.
Yep.
Or there's a principle called the SAID principle, which is specific adaptation to imposed demand. So that means you get better at what you train at, basically. So if you want to get better at running, you probably want to run. There's other things that might help, but running makes you better at running. It doesn't make you better at swimming.
Yeah.
Squatting makes you better at squatting. It doesn't make you better at doing pull-ups.
So in the gym, a fine example of this maybe it would be you've been going to the gym for months, you've been lifting the same weights, you're not seeing any different because the principle of progressive overload isn't there. So you're not getting an adaptation to the muscle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when it comes to say in the gym, there's different methods to train, the TRX or the kettlebell. Are these all methods?
Yes, that's different exercise tools, right? But see where you said that principle of progressive overload.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is still current because we're probably somewhat of a bubble, in this facility, but commonly you would see in other gyms, people would do that. It was common for women to follow this, get a 1 kilo, 2 kilo dumbbell and do their triceps kicks back. So their little exercises. Well, your results are going to be limited if that doesn't create the overload.
And that's when people just plateau and sometimes just give up because they've not seen that progression.
Yeah. And certainly in the exercise realm, there are a set of established principles. Yeah. So again, I could also talk about even marketing, right? So when I go to like business things or I'm trying to educate myself for marketing, there's some people that will teach, oh, here's this new method, try this style of, I don't know, Facebook advert or this tactic, right? It's tactics, but does it understand the basic principles of like, you know, maybe like communication, or do you have your service levels in place and stuff like that? So it's giving people a place to start from.
Yeah. So where would you say people need to start in the health and fitness, like with their health and fitness around principles and sieving through the methods and things like that?
So if it's exercise, there's a few principles. One is specificity. So that's the one I already touched on, that you're going to get better at what you do. So if you want to get better at swimming, yes, other things might supplement that, but you probably need to swim, you know?
You see that, you see that a lot with, I've worked with somebody recently that was a marathon runner that stepping up to the ultra, and all he did was run, which he was quite good at, but then he's been here for maybe 60 days now and started strength training, and that's really enhanced his performance. But he got all the way up to marathon with just running, and I think that's an example of the specific training for that.
Yeah, so being stronger, adding strength training to your running training can help your running, but you're not going to get good at running by only doing strength training. Right? So the strength training makes you stronger, and being stronger makes you a better runner. But in order to be a good runner, you need to run. So that's specificity. There's frequency, which is how often you train. There's duration, which is how long the training session is. So these are basic principles that are aspects of, I guess, someone's training program. And one of the key ones that is probably a massive part of what our approach at AKR comes down to is this idea of reversibility. And you can think of that even like back to Stevie's interview about the dieting, but reversibility is effectively use it or lose it. So it goes back to like thinking that approach is what I'm going to do, something I'm going to do for 4 weeks and then stop. Because if that's the case, then your results probably won't last very much longer than the 4 weeks.
It's like the story of Zatto and that guy having the shakes.
Yeah, so the doctor can say, we can what's the word I'm looking for?
Prescribe.
Sign him out, check him out, discharge. That's the word I'm looking for, right? We can discharge this gentleman and say, look, under our care, he's lost 10 kilos. We'll put him back out in the world. But that's just going to reverse itself because he hasn't learned anything.
Yeah.
His life hasn't changed. He hasn't got the tools in order to move forward. And so I think that's such a massive thing that whatever, we're talking about this because it's January or it's maybe February now. But whatever somebody is about to embark upon or is already starting with regards to health and fitness, it's like think about the principles that are underpinning your approach. If it's weight loss, is calorie balance involved in there or energy balance? But also the reversibility, is there a way for you to continue this? And if not, is there a transition? I actually think there might be a place for that gentleman who, let's put you on shakes for a few weeks in order to lose weight. But there has to be a transition to give him the tools and the skill set in order to do something that won't just reverse itself.
Which we try to do here at AKR.
Which, I think if anyone's listened to the interviews, Chris is one a few back, was talking about how his whole approach to exercise has changed from being focused just on the outcomes to focus more on the process and actually just enjoying the journey. And Stevie was the same. It's I know you're going to ask me what the end point is, but there isn't an end point. It's just carrying on going. So I think it's just understanding the role that putting principles before methods, the power of that.
I think it's really easy for people to jump on the next method without thinking about the principles behind it, and that's that reversibility, that they'll just keep spinning around that wheel of stop, start, stop, start, stop, start, because they've never really understood the core principles of why it's working.
Yeah, and I think if you can just pull it back to principles, again, then you can choose the method that feels right for you. are you getting nutrients into your body? Are you getting energy into your body? Is this something that you don't hate, and can continue to some extent? Are you moving your body? Bring it back to the basics and set your goal. And it was an interesting discussion Chris had around goals and focusing on the process. And I think that's such a valuable thing, again, at this time of year, because Stevie also said, it's almost like people are so outcome focused. They're so desperate to see this big drop in weight that they do some extreme thing. But what if the approach is more like, I want to be the sort of person who eats well and exercises repeatedly and things like that. Then your whole conversation with yourself, your whole outlook for what I'm going to look for to help me achieve this changes. Your whole measuring system for what success looks like in your new year changes, because it's not just like, did I lose 5 kilos this week? It's like, did I take a little step? Did I stay on track? I think that's the power. That's the whole point of this season, is to encourage people to, as you start your new year, let's try and set ourselves up for success.
The analogy of the roundabout that Chris used is, don't come off the same slip road every time. Go round the roundabout and take another route. For him, that's been pausing, stopping, and understanding that it's not about numbers and tracking anymore. It's about how he feels. And I think if you're coming into the new year, getting carried away with all those fads and fancy diets, and you've been on that path before, stop yourself before you take that path again and look for an alternative.
I think it's funny because Stevie also spoke about being in a car and going on a journey.
Yeah.
So we're in Stevie's car and we're coming up to Chris's roundabout. And Stevie, for many years, as he said, he was taking that same turn every time as well. He was signing up for a gym, doing induction, and not going any further. So turning off at the same place. I think, just to bring this analogy on a little step further, I think what we're trying to do in this season is put the signposts on the roundabout.
Nice.
So, or give people the tools to read the signposts, to say, this turn that you're taking is following a celebrity diet. And you're doing that because it's an appeal to authority. And that celebrity diet isn't evidence-based. And it doesn't respect the principles of energy balance. So let's maybe miss that turn.
Yeah.
Let's maybe take this next turn, which, okay, here's a diet. It's a longer term approach, but it respects the principle of energy balance, and it's evidence-based. They've done studies on this, and the stuff works. And you can take a turn, but you can read the signposts, and you know the reason that you're taking one turn versus the other.
You can see it coming.
That's what I want. If I can give the listener anything from this season, it's like, here's some skills to help you be a better thinker, to better navigate the roads of the health and fitness world.
Yes. You brought that to life there, Mike. That was good.
I think it's getting rid of that perfect. I think people have got this word perfect in their head. Like, I'm going to get to the perfect weight, the perfect size. And it just kind of adds to that cycle of back to, I'm going to try something else. I'm going to fail at that. I'm going to try something else. And it just goes round and round in the roundabout, like you said.
And do you know what, though? Like, we were talking a few back when I was talking about reflecting on the year, and I thought one of the gifts that COVID was giving me, or the lockdown was giving me, was I've got this opportunity to make this perfect daily schedule. And it only took a few weeks to realise that wasn't a thing. Chris was talking about his goal setting, and like the pinnacle was being able to play in an orchestra. And he said he'd never been more disappointed.
When he got to that point.
And so this is another sort of thing that we'll repeatedly fool ourselves in our own heads with. Repeatedly. It's one of these lessons I think we need to learn over and over and over again, where it's like, if and when this happens, or when I get there, then. And even like Stevie sat here and said, I'm just making progress because I know, like, I feel good today. Like, so how can we all feel good today?
Yeah.
Because like you said, Zatto, there's not a perfect. You're gonna drive down that road and reach another signpost, another U-turn, roundabout. I think
a couple of years ago we had that conversation about you coming to the term of realizing that it'll never be then. Like, when we get to this point, yes, we've done it. and then you wouldn't, when you got to that point in your life, you wouldn't celebrate it. And then you would look for the next best thing. And then when you got to that point, you didn't celebrate it. So it's taking that time just to be present and celebrate the wins. Nothing's perfect. You've still got to keep going. Does that make sense?
Totally. So during Chris's interview, I'm sitting off camera, and when he's saying that about the orchestra, like right now, one of our commercial goals for AKR is to get back to the number of members we had before COVID. And I'm already sitting there going, it's not like I'm going to feel any different that day, am I?
Yeah.
I'm not even going to have a beer to celebrate. I just know it. It'll just be like, yes, all right, what's next?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 100%, still going to be that way inclined. But I think one of the key things that I've changed that I did towards the end of 2021 was just getting that gratitude journal going again. And Chris also mentioned the same thing. He said, I'm not writing functionally, I'm writing like appreciatively.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, he's writing down what he did and being like, hey, I got to do this. I got to do that. That was a little bit tricky, that challenge, but I got to do this.
He wasn't just ticking off the boxes of the day. He was thinking about it.
Yeah. And I think for me, if we're now, the conversation's gone into this balance of like making forward progress, but realizing that there's not going to be a sense of completeness when we get to this goal. It's like, how do I appreciate the journey? How do I work on my happiness and energy and vitality levels day to day for its own sake, yet at the same time still be moving forward and still having a direction? And I think that's where, there's different ways you can look at goals. I think I said in one of the ones, if you don't know like what you're doing, like why are you getting out of bed in the morning? And it sounded kind of harsh, because I do believe in just living in that, like living for the day. The days are your life in miniature, right? So you need to make your days good. But I think at the same time, having a goal gives you the direction. Chris had a marathon booked, which got him to do the running. And ideally, you're running not just to do the marathon, which if we go back to the season we did on motivation, can actually thwart a person's sense of motivation. You're not running just for the marathon, but you actually can enjoy running. But sometimes it takes that sense of purpose that booking the marathon gives you. And what I loved about Chris, it was like at the end, he didn't even do the marathon. He knew he was capable of doing the marathon, and that was fine. So the point is that like it's never about the goal. I think I said, we're talking about getting hung up on like having a 10-year goal or a 5-year goal. And one of my mentors said, like every year when he reviews his goal, he changes his 10-year goal. But it was never about the goal, right? It was about the direction that the goal gave you. Stevie says, I'm in a car driving along, but
there's no
I don't think anybody's out just now in Aberdeen just driving aimlessly around the goals. They're going somewhere. Now you might go somewhere and suddenly get so far down the road and decide to turn off and go somewhere else, and that's fine. But I think having some direction is the key.
Anything else to add to the principles and methods?
Yeah, we kind of like way off track there, didn't we?
No, but it was almost like a summary of the season. That was.
Yeah, I think again, at the risk of labouring the point and repeating myself like I usually do, I think the takeaway is, like I said, we're trying to put signposts so that when you're embarking on something, check in with yourself, check in with your thoughts, go maybe run them by someone else. Is this a bit wacky what I'm doing? Am I missing something here?
Is this too good to be true?
Is it too good to be true? Is it just like short-sighted, foolish, unrealistic? Like, because you're a human being, you're going to be like that sometimes. And then, is it evidence-based, or am I signing up for some like crazy thing? And then, what are the principles that underpin what I'm trying to achieve? And could I maybe pick my own methods to help achieve those? I think that's the key takeaway for that side of things.
Yeah, good. Say the listener, I don't know where they've been, but they've just jumped on, they heard Stevie's interview, so they listened to this one afterwards. Could you give a brief summary of seasons 1 right through to now? Brief.
Of the last 30 hours of content.
Brief. brief. Just touch on each topic, and then we'll finish it there. So let them know what was before, so they can go back and listen.
Well, I think just before I get into that, it's worth saying we're going to take a break from this podcast for a while, just to assess what it's been a big commitment of resources, and we need to take a little break and also just check in and reflect, see where we're going with it, see what the goal is, all that sort of stuff that we've been talking about. And yeah, I guess it feels like a nice finishing point before this break as well. I feel like every season, every episode, we've tried to build on and take the listener through a journey. So we began with just like, what is the health and fitness landscape typically like, where people go, similar to what we've spoken about this season, that people get drawn into this extreme all or nothing approaches, outcome based. And we introduced this idea that fitness is an infinite game. You're going to be playing the game forever, so let's set up a game that you can win. From there, we took it on, like, rather than focusing on like diets, let's focus on skills and habits. How do we develop the skills required to succeed in the game? What was next? Motivation. Again, that's something that people typically look as like an all or nothing. I have motivation or I don't have motivation.
Stevie touched on that a little bit there. I didn't have any motivation for it. But did he, or was it just in a different bucket?
Yeah, so what we shared is there are different types of motivation, and I think having that understanding can help people improve their relationship with fitness, nutrition, exercise. Season 4, we then got into living life by priority, and I think Chris's one? He spoke a lot about this, about, like feeling like he had to doing a certain thing at a certain age in life.
Yeah.
Or playing by other people's rules and things, and that the pronouns are me and I.
Me and I.
And when you live better for you, you're going to be a better human being for everybody else in your life. So deciding what's most important for you in your life, we spoke about a bit of time and life management stuff, so that you can create a schedule to do the things that are most important to you.
That was the calendar and clarity in there as well, was it?
Yep. Yeah. And then this one, we're now just began, I feel like I'll be summarising again, but just looking at like your own way of thinking and how you're going to choose particularly in fitness and nutrition, the steps forward that you're going to take.
Yeah. I think if somebody new was listening to this episode and they went back and went through from episode 1 to 40, I really feel that there would be so much information and take homes that they could change their life with it. Like, without a doubt, even just skills and habits, motivation, like seeing things through a different lens. So if you haven't already, I highly recommend going back and listening to them all.
And do you know what? If you have already, go back and start again. Because like I recently read a book for the second time that I read years ago, and you get something different.
Take something different away from it. Yeah, definitely.
I've had a lot of members that they listen to it maybe in a run, or they've listened to it in the car, and they've had to go back with a notebook because there's so many bits that they wanted to write down. Yeah. And that's just and that's our members that have known us for such a long time. So there's a lot of gold in all of these episodes.
Yeah. You can never step in the same river twice.
True.
Because you're not the same person and it's not the same river.
And on that bombshell, like Mike said, this is the last of the seasons for now. We could come back with a season 6. If you would like to hear that, please give us a review, check in with us, let us know if there's anything that you want to hear. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, just worth adding, because like when you produce content like this, you put it out into the world, and sometimes you get comments back and things like that, and sometimes you don't. And so like I know we ask for a review fairly frequently, but if you have gotten something from this, if you would like to see us return, we really appreciate if you take 2 minutes to post a wee review and let us know.
I would like to thank all of the team members for coming on this season. I know it was daunting and scary, but you did it. You leveled up.
Got there.
And of course, producer Mark and Dan. And of course you, Mike. Thank you.
And to the guests. The guests have all been great, sharing the member stories, which I really feel have helped bring things to life and hopefully show that we're not just making this stuff up, because they're living, breathing examples of people who've come through and taken the steps and changed their lives.
Yeah, all the stuff works.
Yeah.
Well, as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for joining me. And we might see you again.
Thank you.